Welcome to tying Michigan's best trout flies. Today we're going to tie my own pattern, a Hendrickson Para Emerger, which has proven to be very effective for this hatch that really kicks off dry fly fishing in Michigan. So let's get started. So to tie our Hendrickson Para Emerger, I'm going to use a size 12 hook, and I'm using a brown 6/0 thread. It's actually a reddish brown thread. If you can find that, it's a Danville product. But we're going to go down halfway down the shank and back to the post position. I'm going to attach the post first, like I did on the other parachute flies. Again, I'm using white deer hair, just a small section. This doesn't need to be stacked. It's nice and has nice even tips. So we'll just cut off a little bit to use for our post and turn it over, and our post about the length of the shank is ready to be tied in with several overhand wraps. To start, pull straight down, do it again, straight down. Now it's nice and snug, so we slide our scissors in on an angle and trim that as flush as we can so we have less to deal with to bind down here. Now we do have a couple of errant fibers. That's no big deal. We'll just cover them up real quick like. And take our thread back in front of the post, stand it up with about 3 wraps. Now we're ready to do our posting. And I'll switch the thread from my right hand over to my left. I'll hold the post with my right hand and bring the thread around and catch it with my middle finger. Around and catch it with my middle finger. Around and catch it with my middle finger. Just like that. We do that 7 or 8 times, and that makes a nice post and a good pathway for our hackle. And so we can bind down anything that's showing now and then proceed to tie on the tail. Well, it's not really a tail, it's part of our shuck, and I'm going to use a piece of pheasant tail just like we did on the Roberts Drake. A nice segment like that. Trim it there. And I want this to be about the length of the shank. So we're going to measure it, hold it there, trim that right by the post so we're evened up. A couple of nice snug wraps there to bind it down. Oopsie. And take that back to the bend of the hook. Bring it back to the post position. Now we're going to use a dubbed body. So what we really have here is kind of a combination of an Adams style with a dubbed body and a Roberts Drake style with a little sprig of pheasant out here for the trailing shuck. But that's not completed yet. We have another function to do here that's going to add on to this and make it a almost perfect imitation of a trailing shuck. But first, let's dub our body on. Now I blend my own for a Hendrickson. That's why, one of the reasons why I think it's important for people to use fur, and I use a lot of rabbit fur and some muskrat. It's, first of all, fur is much easier to dub with, and you can blend the different colors and make any shade you want. You're restricted if you buy synthetics. They're generally only one shade, and you get what you get. But if you blend your own, you can get whatever shade you want. So I blend gray and some, like this here, some really dark mahogany fur together to get my shade for the Hendrickson fly. So I'm going to take just a little bit of that out, and we'll have enough to dub our size 12 like we did before. We'll just put it onto our pre-waxed thread loosely, first of all. And then using the method I described earlier, we'll put our middle finger right behind the forefinger and create a lot of pressure so this dubbing goes quite rapidly, just like that. We can go up and down once or twice. Now we're ready to dub it. Just overhand wrap. So go back to the bend of the hook, and we'll start there and wrap it forward. Wrap it forward all the way to the post, and then a wrap in front as well. Now here's where we're going to add our little special touch. We'll take our thread right through our dubbing over here to right behind the post. Let it hang there just for a minute. Now we're going to take a little section of dark deer hair like this. Just a small section, just a little bit like that, and we're going to trim that off. And we're going to use this to complete our trailing shuck. We have a couple of long ones, we'll just pull those out. To complete our trailing shuck, we're going to measure it like this. You want your deer hair fibers to come about halfway the length of the pheasant tail, like that. That's where that's going to end. Now take it back here and measure it to right behind the post. Clip it there and attach it firmly there. And now wrap it all the way back right on top of your dubbing to the bend of the hook, and then cinch it down a little bit. You see that deer hair flare out? That makes the completion of the trailing shuck. Take your thread back now to in front of the post so we can tie in our hackle. I'm using grizzly and brown. You can use whatever hackle you want for that. I find this to be a very effective combination for many flies, so I pre-selected both. Now again, we want to take the web off. You'll see if there's some darker area here. That's the web. We're going to remove that from our brown. That's one. We're going to do the same thing from our grizzly. You'll see the darker area. You just snip that off. And again, I'd like to put the brown feather on the bottom. That's just my preference. And we'll make a little place to attach it to the shank. Trim it off a little bit. Then right behind the post, a couple of wraps behind the eye. Our hackle's attached, and we can wrap it. And we wrap both of these together, and we'll start at the top of the pathway we made for the post and wrap our hackle down the post. Each wrap goes beneath the preceding one all the way down, maybe just 3 or 4 wraps. And now you have plenty of hackle on there to float this fly. Pull it snug as you go. Wiggle it a little bit. Now that's in place. Now to tie it off, we're just going to hold this hackle back out of the way. Give this a few wraps here. Go back in and trim it off. And then we can whip finish this. And we do this the same way. Take your whip finisher, put it on, hold the hackle back out of the way, and take 4 or 5 turns with your whip finisher. Snug it. Again, I have a stationary vise. If you have a rotary, you can just swivel it around, but take the fly out. See if there's any errant fibers, maybe just 1 or 2, trim them off. Back into the vise to show our completed Hendrickson Para Emerger. Now, this is a style of fly. Again, it's really a combination of like an Adams with a dubbed body and a Roberts Drake with the pheasant tail for the tail or the trailing shuck. You can alter this size and the color of the hackle and all your materials now and make a wonderful emerger with a dubbed body for any size mayfly you want. When we turn it over, we see again the length of the trailing shuck, these fibers sticking out here, making a perfect imitation of an emerger. So tie it in a variety of sizes and colors and you'll have certain success. So that concludes our Hendrickson Para Emerger. Very effective for that tremendous early season hatch. Now, in our next session, I'd like to share with you some tips on how to tie standard wing dry flies, that is hackled wing dry flies, both the dun style and the spent wing style. I found that a lot of people have difficulty with this with the advent of the popularity of parachute and posting. This is kind of taking a second seat. So maybe you'll get some good tips on how to attach a standard dry fly wing and a standard type of hackle wing, spent wing fly. See you the next time.